Hello Royal Watchers and welcome back to the channel, welcome to my home. Today is a day that I am so excited because I've just come back from London where I've actually seen some amazing royal portraits from the National Portrait Gallery, which will be included in my weekly vlog on my other channel. But I came back to the news that Camilla, the Queen, has finally worn some iconic jewellery that was previously worn by Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So I am just really jubilant and excited. Of course I am talking about, I'm so excited, the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. Now, I'm not wearing my replica today, I'm wearing the Gloucester honeysuckle tiara. But I do have a replica and it is a gorgeous tiara to wear, even though I know mine is not the same weight or the exact same stature as the original. It's not an exact replica. But I was wondering, when would Camilla, the Queen, break out those jewels? What appropriate occasion would there be? So we'll get to the occasion in a moment, because it was a very important historic occasion. But I kind of, did I have in mind this tiara? Yes, I think I kind of did, because some of the other ones have kind of Russian names, the Vladimir tiara, the Kokoshnik tiara, the Russian fringe tiara. All of those I thought at the moment, with what's going on with Russia and that whole situation, I didn't think that one of those tiaras would be debuted. Now, of course, that wouldn't have necessarily have mattered with Queen Elizabeth II because she's worn those many, many times. But when you have a choice, a brand new choice, you've got a chocolate box and you're kind of choosing which one you want. It all has symbolism and it has poignancy. So the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, I think, was a fabulous choice. So possibly one that I was kind of expecting. Now, the history of this tiara is incredible. I do have a proper Buckingham Palace Royal Collection diamond book, which has a lot of the information, but I don't have it here. It's in my library at the old house. So I've had to do a little bit of research online to get that information. But it does have a rather interesting history. It was originally a gift to the Queen's grandmother, Queen Mary, when she married the future King George V. Now, of course, Queen Mary, as we all know, was an absolute magpie. She is a woman after my own heart, and she believed, no, well, she didn't believe in that less is more. She was a more is more kind of girl, and she definitely wore jewels, necklaces, pearls, diamond chokers up to here. She just looked absolutely fabulous. And yeah, this was a wedding present now it was actually arranged by Lady Eva Greville, daughter of the Earl of Warwick, who led a committee for the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland to raise money for a wedding gift. This tiara was bought at Garrard's with the proceeds, and there was even a little bit of money left over which was donated to charity. So just think back, would that fly today? I don't think that would fly today. Can you imagine the community pulling together, or even not even the whole country or the whole nation, just let's just say Cornwall, pull together to raise money to buy Catherine a tiara or a necklace or something jewel. That's just not going to happen. I think those days are gone. It just goes to show the high regard in which Queen Mary and George V were kind of held. Obviously, it's a wedding present, so they hadn't actually married yet, but it just goes to show how much things have changed. I really do. Anyway, whether or not we're changing for the better is still to be seen. But anyway, back in the days where deference was definitely a thing to be admired, it was bought from Garrard's. Now, the tiara, interestingly, has not always been in its present form. It has had kind of a few little guises over the years. The tiara features what we can see at the moment in its current state, a diamond base, and is flexible, allowing it to be worn as a coronet. It can also be taken off its frame and worn as a necklace, although we have never seen that happen. But if you actually look at the shape of the tiara, you can almost imagine it as a kind of festoon type necklace. So originally, where the diamonds are on the top, they were actually pearls, and there are some photos of it in that state. Those were removed and amended diamonds, which I think there was a breakdown of another tiara for that. So that was removed in 1914, and the pearls were added to Queen Mary's Lover's Knot tiara. So of course Queen Mary's Lover's Knot tiara is now famously worn by Catherine, Princess of Wales, and previously Diana, Princess of Wales. So you can see those pearls. So it's really good to kind of see a little bit of posh kind of upcycling, recycling going on with the jewels. Nothing has gone to waste. So let me know in the comments, do you prefer the diamond top configuration or the pearls? I mean, it does really change, I think, the whole look of the tiara pretty much. But anyway, the diamond tiara was given to Queen Mary as a wedding present from the county of Surrey, which had been dismantled and arranged into new jewels. The base of the tiara was also made removable to be worn as a bandeau, and there are some pictures of Queen Mary wearing that kind of slim diamond base as a bandeau. Queen Mary kept both tiara and bandeau until 1947. Of course, that was the year that Her late Majesty married the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip of Greece, as he was back then. Both pieces were presented separately as wedding presents, and Queen Elizabeth later told an artist that it wasn't until after Queen Mary's death that it was realised that the tiara and bandeau could be worn together. So imagine being presented with these two different pieces and not even knowing that, you know, they could kind of fit together, even when there are photos of them being worn separately. But you can kind of see the early photos of Her late Majesty wearing the tiara not on the bandeau base, and it does kind of almost look like it's totally kind of emerging through the hair. I'm not quite sure what configuration I prefer. By the way, if you look at the actual diamonds, it looks like little girls holding hands, kind of linked together. So you can see those kind of rising from the hair. But with the bandeau, obviously, they sit on top of the bandeau. It gives a very different look. Let me know which ones you prefer. So after Queen Mary's death, it was realised that they could be worn together, and Queen Elizabeth had both pieces reattached in their original form. The Queen and, of course, Queen Mary liked it specifically because it is very lightweight. I'm imagining most of the lightweight component of it comes from the actual frame, because the frames themselves can be very heavy, especially if they're set in platinum. And of course, because the diamonds are quite kind of spaced out, giving that nice kind of girls holding hands linked effect, it does have that nice lightweight feel about it. Queen Elizabeth II wore it numerous occasions and referred to it rather affectionately as Granny's tiara. I think most people will associate it with Queen Elizabeth II rather than Queen Mary, whom it originated from. But that's kind of the history and the provenance. Now, I wasn't expecting to see that tiara debuted first, but then again, I kind of was. It's a weird kind of thing. What other tiara could she potentially have worn? There are many. Maybe she could have debuted the aquamarine tiara, but I think the occasion kind of lends itself really, really well to the girls of Great Britain and Ireland. So this occasion has taken place since the 17th century on the year of a monarch's coronation, and it is where the monarch gives a speech for during a reception at Mansion House in the city of London. Now, King Charles's speech was packed full of, controversial issues that are affecting us today. And during the address, the King told dignitaries from the city that he believes the country stands at a watershed moment, not least when the natural instincts of its people to pull together and cooperate risks being drowned out by the shouting of the digital sphere, where civilised debate too often gives way to rancour and acrimony. He cautioned that people owe it to each other to listen to views of other people with politeness and respect, and to be passionate but not pugnacious, avoiding the desire to scapegoat those who are trying to serve. I think this is, a direct kind of reference to this kind of cancel culture and this kind of shutting down of debate if a particular viewpoint or a particular narrative doesn't fit in with what is deemed to be socially acceptable. Now, everyone is going to have very strong opinions on this, and I think it's quite a departure from what Her Late Majesty would have said on this subject. Her Late Majesty, I don't think, would have touched on this subject quite so pointedly. I mean, she may have kind of skirted around it, perhaps, in a future Christmas message, if it was particularly pertinent to do so, but I don't think she would have ever tackled this head on, which again shows how King Charles III is doing things differently and tackling the issues of the day. And it's exactly because this is contentious, people having their view and opinion, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, but also being kind. And I think that's the one thing that he's kind of highlighting here is people can have their own opinion, they can have their own, point of view, they can, you have the right to say things as long as you're not breaking any kind of hate laws. But if you do it in the correct way, you can be passionate, but you can also be respectful and not pugnacious, then that's the way to do it. And I myself, often think that people's differing views of opinion and thought and whatever actually help spark debate. And it's this kind of debate that people have that can actually make the world a better place. When we talk about the things that annoy us, when we talk about how we can make things better, when we work collaboratively, then we can make some change. And I think that is what Charles is saying. So I got pulled up one of the other videos with people saying, don't call him Charles, call him the King. I'm still getting used to calling him the King. But anyway, that is what King Charles is trying to do, but also reflecting on this digital age that we live in, where everything is so instant, everything is so immediate, and the risks that poses. And I do think that this is also showing that kind of change, that recognition for the digital age that perhaps Harry and Meghan wanted. I still think Harry and Meghan left too early. All of this, kind of change, acknowledgement that social media, does kind of need tackling in a kind of be kind thought of mind. It was all going to come during Charles, and it turns out that Harry and Meghan didn't have to wait that long for this kind of thing to be spoken about. So there is the whole speech, and I could read the whole speech, but it's quite long. So you can find it. Shall I read it? I think I'll just read it, and I'll pop all the photos of King Charles and Camilla whilst I'm reading it. So I need to try and kind of channel Charles the King. So He says, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my wife and myself, I want to thank you for your most warm and generous welcome to the city this evening. Lest there be any anxious eyes cast around this august gathering, let me begin by reassuring you that it is my aim to depart this evening with fond memories of friendships made and renewed, but not the grant of tonnage and poundage afforded to my Plantagenet forebears. He is quite comical, isn't he, in his own way. I would, however, like to express my own particular thanks for city traditions which have been maintained across the ages. Notably, as you mentioned, Lord Mayor, the city livery's production of special and precious items in support of coronations. These include the magnificent anointing screen and coronation cup, which your guests have an opportunity to see in the equally magnificent setting of Mansion House this evening. So that big coronation screen was on display. Since my accession last year, and in preparation for our coronation earlier this year, I have taken the opportunity to reflect on what it is that makes this nation of ours so special. For every generation lives with it its own set of hopes and fears, as if caught in a perpetual tussle between optimism and pessimism, promise and peril. I have often described the United Kingdom as a community of communities, an island nation in which our shared values and the force which holds us together, reminding us that there is far, far more that unites us than divides us. And I think that's true. Yet we are living in something of a watershed age. For example, will the coming of artificial intelligence bring with it an era of ever-increasing material plenty and leisure? Interesting question. And yes, AI is definitely becoming something that everyone is beginning to use. Or will it fundamentally change and perhaps even consume jobs and other opportunities before capturing and then surpassing our very minds themselves? Again, another pertinent question, one to be asked, one to be debated, I think. After decades of debate, our television screens, or increasingly mobile phone screens, confront us each day with the stark realities of climate change. But are devastating scenes of communities scarred by fire and flood, not to mention the migration of people fleeing those terrifying phenomena, enough to persuade us to take the action that is needed, to make the sacrifices needed to secure our planet for generations yet unborn? Is our society, with its deep and ancient roots, nurtured and enriched by our welcome of new citizens from the four corners of the globe since the dawn of our history, up to the challenges and ready to meet them head on? I believe so. Because at such a juncture in our national life, there are special strengths which we can summon to help us, deep wells on which we can draw, filled not just with our shared histories and experiences, but with literally countless individual stories too, a mix of memories past and ambitious future to help give ourselves a sense of perspective. From these wells we can raise hope, a shared purpose, and above all a genuine togetherness that will see us through good times and bad. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, the gifts these wells bestow are of high and enduring worth. First, there is the deep well of civility and tolerance, of which our political life and wider national conversation depend, suffused with our sense of fairness and our devotion to the rule of law. We live in an age where across the demographic spectrum, education and lived experience have schooled us in our rights, what we know we can expect from one another, and how to go about securing it. The words, "I know my rights," are wholly familiar and often true, but have we succeeded in equal measure in schooling ourselves and our communities in the importance of our responsibilities towards one another? Do we pause instinctively and unerringly before speaking or acting to ensure we are affording equal weight to both sides of the balance? Our society would be a kinder and gentler place for it. Next, there is the breathing space we afford one another, leaving us able to think and speak freely. This well carries the politeness and respect we owe to one another, our willingness to put others first and treat them as we would wish to treat us, to listen to their views, and if we do not agree, to remind ourselves to engage in a way which is passionate but not pugnacious. This includes the practice of our religious faiths in freedom and mutual understanding. One of my first acts of sovereign, a little over a year ago, was to open the doors of Buckingham Palace to the leaders of the major faiths represented across these islands, to welcome them with respect and indeed love, and to rededicate my life to protecting the space for faith itself within our shores. Such understanding, both at home and overseas, is never more vital than at times of international turmoil and heartbreaking loss of life. Third, the duty of care we feel for others in sickness or misfortune. We strive to be compassionate people who, in the best and worst of times, seek instinctively to relieve the suffering of others, those we love, whose we like, and most powerfully of all, the stranger we have never met, but to whom we extend our hand and our help. Fourth, there is the cataract of science, innovation and scholarship which flows into our laboratories and libraries, our lecture halls and our seminar rooms, and beyond into our production lines and knowledge industries. More and more it flows into that greatest battle of all, which I mentioned a few moments ago, and to which the city is responding admirably with charismatic innovation and flair: the combating and mitigation of global warming and climate change. And fifth, the cherished well from which the sound of laughter can be heard, the healing well filled with a sense of humour, laced with an invigorating dash of self-irony. This well flows liberally into all others. The British sense of humour is world-renowned. It is not what we do, it is who we are. Our ability to laugh at ourselves is one of our great national characteristics, just as well, you may say, given some of the vicissitudes I have faced with frustratingly failing fountain pens this past year. I think that's really good of him to acknowledge that, because it was a little comical. What a legacy, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, these wells represent, the bounty they give us, the contagious inspiration they bring to our everyday lives, is a daily fillip. A fillip. Have you used that term before? As is the sense of purpose they instill as we face what is to come, a shining asset we all share. These flows, the gifts of the wells, also give life to the institutions we have created to bring us health and social care, learning and innovation, industry and enterprise, safety and justice, and our national defence. We rely on that sense of public service which takes so many far beyond the call of duty in often difficult and sometimes dangerous circumstances. The institutions which rely on their labour and loyalty also deserve the warmth of our appreciation and not the chill, demotivating scapegoating into which criticism can all too easily decay. The instinct to cooperate whenever and wherever possible is deep within us, even in the most fractious times, when disagreements are polished, paraded and asserted. There is in our land a kind of muscle memory that does not have to be like this, that the temptation to turn ourselves into a shouting or recriminatory society must be resisted, or at least heavily mitigated whenever possible, especially in the digital sphere, where civilised debate too often gives way to rancour and acrimony. These instincts come together in perhaps the deepest of all our reservoirs, the one that irrigates our crucial sense of responsibility, both individual and collective, that enables us to fulfil our duties as good citizens who understand without having to write down or formalise them to decencies on which our institutions and our constitution depend, as well as our relationships to one another. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, these are virtues for all seasons. They carry our hopes, our kindness and our duties to one another. They make us what we are and shape what we aspire to be when moving over the cusp of what is to become of us. As we live and breathe on these islands that we share, cherish and crucially sustain. As king and as father and a grandfather, I commend them to you. And on behalf of my wife and myself, let me conclude by renewing our heartfelt thanks for the warmth and generosity of your welcome this evening, and by proposing a toast to the Lord Mayor and the City of London Corporation. Wow, what a speech! It's definitely a Christmas speech, Christmas message, just on steroids, basically. It's a really important message, and I think it sets out King Charles's vision for not being what some people have said he will be, which is a caretaker monarch. He's not just going to sit here and fill the next sort of 20-30 years until he passes away and then the Prince of Wales becomes king. No, King Charles III is going to try and have impact on real social issues and social changes of the day. And that is where I think he feels that his worth and experience will lead him to. And I think the government of the day and the people are going to afford him the time and space to do such a thing. Thank you for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and of course do hit the bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. From me, mwah, to you all, and goodbye.